So we are on day 17th and 14th October 2020. We'll work with the same thing as we did yesterday, object-oriented JavaScript and problems in JavaScript and React Redux, the one which we did yesterday. We'll continue with that one. So let's start with the problems first. So yesterday I was showing the reverse of integer. Let's go through it again. So for example, I have the string var number. I have number equal to 24. I have to reverse this integer. So you have to think the idea how to reverse it. So in array we have the reverse method. So first we have to convert this into array. And numbers cannot be converted into array using the split function. So we have to convert this number to the string. So first step is convert number to string so that we can convert it into array. Then second step is convert string to array, and third step is reverse the array, and then since array is reversed we have to bring back into the string. So we use the join method to convert array to string back, and we have to convert the string back to the integer. So we use parseInt method to convert string back to number. And since we have to apply minus sign also, so we will use math.sign of number and multiply.
Hello?
Yes.
Thanks. I want to know actually I'm audible or not. Thank you.
Okay, got it. So I will take the math sign. If it is positive number, then I'll apply math sign will be the 1. And if it is negative number, then math dot sign will be -1. So I'll take this 1 or -1 and I'll apply to the previous result, so that I can get the proper minus or plus sign. So these are the steps which we will follow to one second. Okay, so to this one I was doing. Okay, so I'll save it here to do the reverse of the integer. So let's do first convert the number to the string. So I got this number. I will convert the string into a string like this. Number to string is a function. So I added it to string. It becomes a string. Then I'll split it. Split using no space, empty kind of space. So when I split it, it becomes an array. And then I reverse the array. So it becomes 2, 4 becomes 4, 2. And then I join it with this. So it becomes 4, 2. It takes this array and convert it into the string. And then I will use the parseInt to convert it into the integer again. So I'll take the previous one and I will you parse integer, so it becomes 42 in the numeric format. Since it is a positive number, we got a positive number, but if it would have been negative number, I need the sign here. So I would have multiplied this whole result with math.sign number into parsing. So it multiplies the number with the 1 or minus 1. Let's do one example of the minus 1. For example, I have minus 500. So I'll say number equal to minus 500. Now I have to reverse it. So let's go one by one step again. So first step we did number to string. So once I do number to string, it becomes minus 500 like this. Then I'll do dot split. It becomes array with minus sign in the front and 500. And then I do reverse. Once I do reverse, minus sign goes to the end and we get 005. Then I'll join. Once I join, I get a string of 005 minus. So if I convert this to the string, to the integer, this minus sign, since it is in the end, it will go away. And 005 is a numeric kind of thing, it will become 5 integer. So if I use parse integer on this, so I'll get 5 because it will ignore all the string after the numeric one. So it will take 5. And I have to apply with this, I have to multiply this with the minus sign of number so that ultimately I should get minus 5. So this is how we convert, reverse the integer. Let's take one more problem. So the problem is called Palindrome. And what it means, palindrome means what? Palindromes are strings that form the same word if it is reversed. So I take the string, for example cat, and I reverse it, it becomes TAC. So both are different. Since both are different, so this is not a palindrome. Because if we reverse it, it should be same to make it palindrome. So for example, we'll take one more, ABBA, and if I reverse it, it will become ABBA. So this is palindrome. Next is ABCBA, and if I reverse it, it will become ABCBA. So this is also a palindrome. So we take the string, we reverse it, and if it is same as the string, then it is palindrome, otherwise it is not a palindrome. So I'll copy this here. Okay, so we'll do this problem. So how to do this? We'll take the word and we'll reverse it, and then we'll compare. We take the word, we reverse it, and we compare with the previous string. If both are same, then we'll say it is palindrome. If both are not same, then it is not a palindrome. So let's do in one of the ways now. Tomorrow we'll do with different way. So I'll write the function palindrome and I'll pass some string. Then I will create the reverse of this string. So we saw different ways to reverse the string in the last many lectures. I don't remember the number of lecture, but it is in few lectures back we did the reverse of the string. So let's do that one. We'll create a reverse string. So to create the reverse string, I'll take the string, I will split it, then I will reverse it, then I'll join it. So this is how we reverse a string. And then we check a reversed is equal to string. If both are same, that is, if I reverse it and the reverse part and the string both are same, then it is a palindrome. So I return. So this will be true or false. If it is same, it will return true, and if it is not same, it will return false. So okay, there is syntax error. Return spelling is wrong. Okay, now I'll do A B B A. So it is coming true, and if I pass cat, it is coming false. So this is how we do the palindrome. And we'll see different ways tomorrow to do the same palindrome. This is one of the way of doing the palindrome. But in interview, they don't. They may say, don't use this JavaScript inbuilt function. Then we'll do different way to do that. So let me create the JavaScript file. So this is one of the way which we do palindrome. I'll create more ways tomorrow for the palindrome. And this reverse integer, we'll not do different ways to do integer, though we can do, but reverse integer is very rarely asked in an interview. Reverse string is also very rarely asked, but palindrome is something is asked frequently. Okay, so this is palindrome. Okay, so we are done with the problems, today's problem. Let's go with the object oriented now. So yesterday we saw the scoping in the functions. We'll continue with the functions today. And we also did the hoisting and so this is the problems which we did today, and this is object oriented JavaScript. So yesterday we saw scope and hoisting, where variables is moved to the top of the scope, and then it is the code goes on one by one. But initially it moves all the function declaration and all the variables to the top of the scope. Okay, now we'll see what are the functions. Functions are nothing but data. So consider functions as a data. So we consider the functions as a data only. Let me do So since we say this statement that functions are data, so if I create function like this, function f, and I return, for example, 1, or I create function like this, var f equal to function, and I return 1, both are kind of same, both do the same work, but here I am assigning this function to f. Here also we create the function in different way, but in reality this part, the function part, is assigned to f. And so since function is a data, we can use this method also, and we can get this data and assign it to the variable f. So this is kind of data. We are assigning the data to variable f. So both are same, both do the same work. You can use either of the way. This second way, this part, the second method which I wrote, the second way of defining a function is known as literal function. So it is called literal function. Since we are assigning to the f, it is called literal function. If I use typeof operator on the function, it will give me the function. So for example, I create this function. I create this function and I say typeof f. So it is giving me function. Even if I use the literal way, it will give me the typeof function. So for example, if I use this f2 and I say, see what is the type of f2, it is the function. This data type is of function. Now this is the data, functions are data, but it has few special properties which no other data type has. For example, integer or string, they don't have this property. Only functions have that property. And what are those two important properties? First property which function have, they contain the code. So we have multiple lines of the code in the function. This is not true for string or numeric data type. This is only true for functions. Second thing, they are executable. So we can execute them, or we can also say it can be invoked. So we execute by putting the round bracket, and we can execute it. So if I created this function, what will happen if I say only f? It will give me this function in the string format like this. But if I run, it will give me the value. So if I only run this f without round bracket, it will give me the string format of this function. But if I put round bracket, it will execute this function and give me the return value which I have written from this function. And it has the code which we see, and it is executable. Executable means we can execute or invoke it by putting the round bracket. Okay, let's go further now. We saw these two things. Let's go further now. So function also can be treated as a normal variable. So function can also be treated as a normal variable. It can be copied to different variable and even deleted. So we can delete it, we can copy it, and so it is considered as a normal variable. So for example, if I create a function sum equal to function a comma b, and I return a plus b. So this is a function I created. Now I can also copy this function to different variable like add equal to sum. So now add will have the same string what sum has, and then we can also delete the sum. Delete sum. If I delete this sum, that means we're deleting this whole part, this variable. And then if I say type of sum, it will give us undefined because we deleted it. But if I say type of add, it will give me function because it is same as sum. And I can call like this add 1 comma 2, and it will give me 3. So it can be considered as a normal variable. Since we saw that functions are variables, so the naming rule of the function is also same as variable. We cannot start with a number. We cannot start the function name. We cannot start the function name with a number, and it contains a combination of characters, letters, and numbers. And letters or characters same, numbers, underscore. So these are things are there which should be there in the function name. Now, since we saw the function, let's see what are anonymous function. So in JavaScript, we can see the pieces of data lying around your program. So for example, I'll say it's okay to have pieces of data lying around your program. So for example, if I type like this test, and or I type array 3, I'm not assigning to a variable, I'm just putting it in the space, or I say undefined, or I say null, or I say 1. So if I use anything of this, like for example, I take the test and I put it here. So you will see this is not assigned to any variable. This is lying in the space. It does nothing, but it does not give error. So it is okay to have pieces of data in our space, and it will not give error. You don't do anything with this, but code is valid. It will not give us any error. So this, since we don't assign it to any variable, this is also called anonymous data. This is called anonymous data because pieces or this string is not assigned to any variable, therefore don't have any name. So this does not have any variable name. It is lying in the space and it does not give error, and we can put anything in the space, whatever we want. And now, since functions is also our data we saw a few minutes back, we can also create the function without a name and put it in the space anywhere we want. So if I write down like this, so functions are like any other variable. So they can also be used uh, without being assigned a name. Like I show you, string was created without a name. So function can also be created without assigning the name. Like for example, I will create a function and pass the parameter, and let's say I return this parameter. So this is purely valid code, but since we did not give any name, this is also called as anonymous function, since it does not have any name. And we can put this in our space, though it will have no meaning because we cannot call it with the name. Since if I created a function with function f, I can call it. But since this function is created without a name, we cannot call it. We have to call immediately, or we have to pass this in another function. Otherwise, it will do nothing. These type of functions are generally used in the function call. So for example, I have a function f. I pass two parameter b, and I want something to call, or some lines of code to be called after I do the calculation. So for example, I can say sum equal to a plus b. Okay. So after this, this all steps are done. I want to call the function. So I can pass the callback function here. This callback is nothing but a function, and then I can call back with sum. So this callback functions, the callback function which I pass, and I can pass whatever value in it here is there in that callback function. So generally this callback function, you can create the callback function, or you can use the anonymous function instead of callback function. Since we don't, it's up to us. We can create the callback function name, or we can pass this function as an anonymous function and as a callback function. Callback function means it is passed uh, as a return function. Callback means everything whatever you have done, you can call the callback. So when you are done with all the calculation, you go to another function. So this is called the callback function, because when function A calls another function B, then this B is called the callback function. I named it callback, I can call it as B also, and then I call B here. So when I call this function f, I can pass A as 1, B as 2, and in the callback, I can call the anonymous function. I can put anonymous function like this. When I pass the anonymous function here, it will go inside this function, and it will do all the calculation, and then it will call the callback function, that is a B, which is nothing but the anonymous function. I created it, and I pass it in the function. So generally, anonymous function are called as a callback function, or they are invoked immediately, which we will see in the next lesson how they are invoked immediately. But consider anonymous function as a useful utility in our JavaScript. So that's all for today about the anonymous function. Okay, 1 second. So now the React and Redux part. So just go through this anonymous function and whatever I showed you today. This all things will be used when you will do the practical JavaScript in your real life, and all things will be useful, and you will remember that, oh yeah, we did this something. So all these things are practical nature and very useful in all the real practical world of JavaScript. Okay, so we are done with this. We will continue with our TodoApp, which we did yesterday. So let's go to it. Okay, so now we'll go with the React app, which we did yesterday. So just remember, we did the input box yesterday, and that input box, I can add the task, and once I add the task, you will see the task is added in my reducer. It is added in my state variable, and that variable is called the data inside this reducer, and I added this task. So we did the addition part yesterday. We created this task. We saw we had to create the component, then we had to create the action, then we had to create the reducer. So always we have to create the three files whenever we do any functionality using the Redux. So when we go our real life project, so whenever we have to do some module, we will create three things. One is called the JSX file, where I write my code to display to the user, and then I will create the action file, like to do action, and I create the reducer file also, and whatever function, okay, whatever functionality is there, I will add all the functionality in my action, and I call all the action items here, put it in the actions object. I import the action, and I create the map state to get the reducer where this action will store the data. This is only for display purpose, and this is only to take the action which we want to do. For example, in this page we have to add and delete, so I put actions here, and if I have to display something, I will use this state to display something, because all the data which are created goes into this reducer, and I can use this to display the data. So if you see, this action is an object, but we don't have key value pair. Okay, can anyone tell me why we don't have key value pair? Object generally have key value pair. So why we don't have key value pair here?
Because it is the, like I would say, it is the enum type, something like that. So we don't need a key here.
So what will be the key in this case?
The key itself, like add to do, delete
Right.
to do itself to do, and the value itself. The both will
Right.
be the same at this situation.
Right. So generally when we have object, we generally have key value pair, and if we don't pass any key, then this name itself become the key, and value also. So add to do will be the key, and value will be the function which we are calling it here. Here delete to do, key will be delete to do, and the value will be whatever we are getting function from this action. And we write the component, and then in the end we connect it with the Redux using this statement. If we want to access this one or these two, I will use the props to display it. So for example, if I want to see what is there inside to do reducer, inside my component, I can use props dot to do reducer to know what is inside the to do reducer. Or if I want to call add to do action, that is I want to call this function, I will say props to dot add to do whatever function I want to call it. So this is how we do the Redux integration. Now let's display the data which comes. Generally data comes inside the to do reducer. If you see here inside the to do reducer we get the data, and inside the data we have different 1, 2, 3. Can I rename this data to some other name? Can I rename this data to some other name, or data should be there like data?
Yes, we can rename it.
Okay. So if we go, let's say I want to rename it. I'll go into the reducer. If this data is coming from this reducer, I can rename it to 1, and here also I will change it to 1. I can add also different more data like data 2, data 3. Whatever I want to create, I can create that also. So now if I refresh the page, so you will see in the to-do reducer, I will get data 1, data 2, data 3, and specifically when I add this one, I get the data 1 with the value which I added in the to-do task. So it's up to us if we want to edit it or we want to use different naming convention. Since it is only doing one functionality, I'll put the data, I'll not put data 1. Okay, so this one was the reducer. Now, next task is to display all the items here. Okay, so here I will say H3 view my to do items. Okay, so I will display these items here. So I have to go to the props dot to do reducer dot data to get this data. And since this is an array, we have to loop through this array and display the task here. So how to loop through? I already showed you when I was showing the basics of the React. I can show you again. So we have props dot to do reducer, spelling mistake. I'll copy this. To do reducer dot data. So since it is an array, we can use map function, and inside the map we have the arrow function, and inside the curly bracket we will return something. For example, div tag. So I return the div tag, and this map has arrow function like this, and this arrow function will give me two things. One is the each record item, I can say item, and index also. I will get index. So the first time loop will run, it will give me 0. Second time it will give me 1. Third time it will give me 2. Since we don't need this index, I will delete this index now. I will only use the item. And here I will say item dot task. And I will save it. Now what will happen here? So you will see the data has displayed here. Can you see the display part of this data? But I'm getting some warning and it's asking me to put the key. So whenever we have the map kind of thing, React wants me to put the key inside this div tag. And keyway should be unique. So for example, here it will be item.id. Since we have ID for each of the data record, so I will say item.id. Now if I refresh, I'm not getting this warning and I'm getting this record here. Let's put this in some table format so that we can see it in a nice way. So I'll search the table in the Bootstrap. So I will find some nice looking table, whichever I want. So for example, this one, I'll take this table. first one, and here I will put this table here. I will delete all the 3 rows because I need only 1 row, which I will loop it. And here I will say first column is ID, second will be the task, and third will be the delete part. I will not use the UID now because it's not needed. So here also I'll delete the fourth column, and I will copy this tr and put it here inside the return one, and I'll put this key here, and I'll put item here, and in the row I will put ID, and here I'll put the delete text.
Diamond.
Okay, so this is what I do it. I change it, and then I'll put this last part outside my props one, so that table should be complete. And here class builder is not allowed, so I'll say class name. Okay, so this is my table, and now we'll see how it looks. Okay, let me refresh and see if I'm getting any warning. Okay, I'm getting some warning. TR cannot appear child of table, use T body. Okay, I have to wrap this TR inside the T body. Okay, now let's check. Okay, delete spelling is wrong. Okay, now it's coming better. So we have to do item. Go to market or read something. Maybe I can say take T. So once I take T, this ID is self-generated, which is very big one. Initially I put 1 and 2. Now I take the ID. Okay, and we have the task.
I have one question here, Manish.
Yeah.
So actually we refresh this page, but the data is coming.
Yes.
So so the reducer, that means that the reducer is stored data in the local storage, something like that.
So I will answer you this, but before answering you, generally when you put this add item, it goes into the database in real life. It
Yes.
goes into the database, and when you refresh the page, it will retrieve from the database and display it here.
Yes,
So
correct.
you don't need local storage for that thing. Okay, so we can save it in the database and retrieve it from the database. But now why I'm getting this to 1? Because I already created 2 default item in the reducer. I created this
Okay.
default,
Okay.
and
Got it.
that's the reason. So for example, if I come in those 2, then I will not get it unless I put it.
Okay,
So
got it.
we don't need even to put in local storage, because we will be putting in the server, and when we refresh the page, it will get back from the server, and that will show to the user. So we don't need even the local storage. Now, if I add item, I can see the item here coming here, whatever item is there. I add multiple items. I can see the items coming here. Now, if I refresh, all is gone because we are not really saving it in the local storage or in the server or anywhere. But when I don't have any data, I don't want to display this thing. Okay, so I'll mute everyone. So now, when we refresh the page, we don't have data, and we are just seeing the table header and this part. I don't want to show this part if we don't have any data. So let's fix that part. I will go to do. So here I will take this data part, and before my view, I will say if dot length, data is array, so if length is greater than 0, then only we have to display something. Now, what is the purpose of AND? This purpose of AND is that if this line is true, then only display whatever I write after this. So for example, I write div of hello world. Okay, so let me. So what this line means? One second. What this line means is if this is true, then display hello world. So if I go to the page, I will add it. When I add something, so it becomes true and I'm getting the hello world. But if I'm refreshing the page, I'm not getting any value, so I'm not getting the hello world. So instead of hello world, we have to put all this part inside this hello world. Now, generally when we create in React, there should be only one root tag. I cannot have this one root tag here and two second root tag, and I cannot put it here. I need only one root tag. Either I can create div tag. Inside div tag, I can put all this content. Then root tag will be only one div. But if I try to put these two tags, one is h3, one is table. If I try to put these two tags inside this curly bracket, then it will give error, and you will see I'm getting this error because I'm using two tags. One is called as h3 and one is called the table. This is not allowed. So we should wrap with div tag. But sometimes, you don't need like div tag because it will harm your structure. You don't want to put the div tag. So what to do in that case? I will just put empty start, and I will after table I will put empty end tag. This is called fragment in React, where we don't put div tag, we just put empty start and end tag, and then I'll save it. Then I'm not getting any error here. Also, I'm not getting any error here. Now you will not see the table is here, but when I add something, I'm getting this table, and I'm able to add whatever I want to add. So this is all about the add and display. Now we'll do the delete part. Delete part is something you have to delete the data from the array. Okay, so for example, if I want to delete this one, okay, so I will find this row in the array and I will delete that row. So how to delete the row? Let me explain you little basics for that, and then we'll do the delete part. So let's say if I have example, I have a data, I have array, or I have array, and inside array I have object. For example, one object, 2, 3. Oh, wait. Let me create the first object with ID equal to 1 and name equal to John and age equal to 34. So I will add multiple items. Okay, so I have different ages. Okay, so this is my data, and I will try to delete the something from this data. And similar concept we'll use in this one. So first, let's see how to delete the data in an array. In real world, when I click this delete, it will delete the object, this row from the database, and then I refresh the page. So I will get the data without this row because it is deleted on the server. But since we are dealing with array, we should know how to delete something in the array. Otherwise, in real world, you don't need the things which I'm going to show you now. But for our use case, we need these things. Now, so there is one concept of array. I can use one of the method called as find index. Now what find index does, it will give me the index, that is, this is the 0, this is the 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Though ID is 1, the index of first one is 0. I want to know what is the index of first one or second one or third one in an array. So we have the find index method, and find index method will take an arrow function, and inside the arrow function I have kind of element. So it will go through all. In the first case, the element will be this. In the second case, element will be this. In the third case, element is this. So if I pass something true, then it will give me the index of that element. So for example, I can say return element.id. So that is this ID. If I say element.id is equal to 2. So if I'm saying if element is id equal to 2, then return the index of that one. So what it will do, whatever I make it true, it will return the index of that item. So since this is in the second number, the index is 1. So if I do same thing with 3, id equal to 5, for example, so it will give me 4 because this is the fourth one. And if I say something which is not there, 67, then I'll get a -1. So if it is -1, we can think that this ID is not there in the data. Now let's try to find and delete it. So for example, I have to delete this second ID. For what I'll do, I will first get the ID of what item I want to delete it. So I'll say I want to delete the item 2. I want the ID of that one. So I will get the ID of 1. Now I know I have to delete this one, the ID with the index of 1. Now how I will delete it? In JavaScript, we have the concept of splice. Okay, this is the concept of splice. What does it do? It will ask me which item I have to delete it. So if I want to delete the first item, I will pass 0. If I have to delete the second item, I have to pass 1, because this index is 1. If I want to delete this one, I will pass 2, 3, or 4. Since I want to delete this one number, that is this one, so I will pass first item 1. And second, I want to delete how many items I want to delete. So if I want to delete 3 items, I will pass 3. If I want to pass 1 item, I have to delete 1, I will pass 1. So I will say I want to delete 1. Okay, and that's it. There are other parameters also which we don't want to see it now in this use case. And when I use a splice, it will modify this original data. So for example, if I say data, I see I have 5 items in it. But if I use a splice, it will modify the data. So when I do the console.log of data after doing the splice, it will be having the 4 items, because this one will modify the original data. So now if I enter, if I do data, so data will be 4 and the second one is gone. And you will see 0, 1, 2, 3 IDs are numeric from 0 to 3, but second ID is gone. And when I did the splice, what item it deleted, it gives me this one. So this is the idea which we will use to delete the item in the array in our use case. In real world, we don't need this one, but with our use case, we need it. So let's write down this functionality in our application. So the first thing is we have to go to the action. In the action, I am passing the ID which I want to delete it, and then first I have to dispatch that. I will dispatch. Now it is up to me. Now I can do the logic here and do the final setting there. But in this use case, I will be doing the logic in the reducer and saving it there. Okay, but we can do it here. But this is something not practical one, so either I can do here or there. It doesn't make it does not matter. Generally, we do all the actions, all the manipulation here, and then we update the reducer. But in this use case, I will do it in reducer. It's up to me wherever I want to do. It's up to me wherever I can do. So I can dispatch type of delete and payload of ID. So I'm getting ID as a ID, and I'm passing this in the payload to this dispatch. So action is done. Now when I go to reducer, and in the reducer, I have to write the code to delete it, the one which I showed you. So here I will say, first I have to find the index. So I will say constant index equal to, so we have data here, state.data. So I'll use the state.data dot find index, the one which I showed you. Find index has an arrow function, and here I will get element, and here I can return element dot id is equal to there in the console I was passing hard coded, but here I have to pass the dynamic value, and dynamic value which we get here is action dot payload, because if you see in my action I'm passing payload as ID, so dynamic data is coming as ID. So I got the index. Let's try to see what is the value of index. So I'll click the delete. Right now I'm not deleting, I'm just checking what index I am trying to delete it. So I'll go to do. In the delete, I will wrap it with on click. And here I will pass the arrow function. Inside the arrow function, I will call the delete one, that is this delete to do. I'll say props dot delete to do, and I'll pass the ID. What ID I want to delete is this one. Since it is a span, not a tag, we don't get the proper cursor. So to get the proper cursor, I will use the style tag. And in style, I will use the cursor of pointer. Okay, so to look like a tag. Okay, so when I click this delete, I call this action with the ID which I want to delete it. Let's see now what happens. So I have two items. I click the delete one. You will see index is coming 0. I delete the second one. You will see index is coming as 1. So we know when I click the delete, I am getting proper index. Now, once I get the proper index, I showed you how we can delete it. So we'll write the same functionality to delete it. So once I get the index, I will use a splice. So I cannot delete directly from the state.data, because you know a splice if I use, it will directly affect the original variable. So I have to copy this data in. in some object, and then we have to delete that, and we update the state after that. So for example, I'll create some variable delete data is equal to, well, to create a copy of data, we will use 3 dot, and I will say state dot data. So if I create like this way, and if I delete something in this delete data, it will not affect this original data. But if I create the copy like this, then in JavaScript, it always passes the object by reference. If I use this format, and if I delete something in this delete data, then it will also affect this variable, and data will also be deleted from this place. We don't want to do in this way. We directly don't want to delete the data directly from this state, because we have to use immutable way. And to use the immutable way, we have to create the copy and delete from the copy, and then replace the original with the copy one. So I will use the copy of this data and put it in the delete data. And in the delete data, I will use the splice. I have to start with the index, and index I got it from here, and I have to delete one item. And since we don't need to assign it to some variable, because splice manipulates the original data, and only thing we have to pass state like this, state equal to state, and data will be this deleted data. Okay, so this is the way which we do to manipulate the data. And now the data will have the new set of data without the one which we are deleting it. So let's try to see now in action. So I will say item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 items. I'll delete the 4. Okay, so it is deleting but giving me some error. Let's see what is the error. Okay, since so anyone can tell me what is the problem with this statement? I got the error because this is not a proper thing. Some mistake I have done in this code. What is the mistake? Can anyone point me? Let me do in the mute format. So you can unmute.
Yeah. So I think so we have added a hard-coded one because we don't know which item we are going to delete, so we have to get rid of the dynamic.
Dynamic we got the index, that is the dynamic. This one is something we have to delete one item. We're not deleting 2 items one time. So this hard-coded value is fine.
Okay, so always it will be a 1 or
yeah. Since we want to delete only one item, it will always be 1.
Okay.
But there's another problem. The problem is here. Anyone knows, or I can explain you? Okay, let me explain you. So problem here is data is array, and we wrap this dot 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 in object, and that will not make any sense. So I have to wrap inside the array. If I wrap it in object, this final thing will be the object, and splice does not work in objects. So we have to wrap in array, and then it should work. Let's try now. Okay, now I will delete 2. See, 2 is gone. Though we are not giving any warning that I'm trying to delete it, but that is not the task of today thing. Today task is to understand the Redux and React. And in real world, we can give warning that, are you sure you want to delete this item? So I can delete all like this. Okay, so this is how the delete works, and the React Redux integration is done. Though in real world, we will not deleting it by this method. We'll just send the delete command to the backend database, and in the database, we delete it. So that's how we do in Redux. Okay, let's put it in this one, what we did view to do items. Also we did delete to do items.